right. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to our weekly destination debrief. We are live from New York, where the Fora headquarters are based. If you're new here, Fora is a modern travel agency, and the team here at HQ is really built to support all of you in your journey to become a travel advisor, build the business that you really want to build. And one of the many resources that we provide for our advisors are these weekly destination debriefs. We are going to give you intel into a destination that you may or may not be familiar with, Barbados, so that you can confidently sell that destination to your clients. So today, as you can see, we're going to talk about Barbados. I recently came back from a fam trip to Barbados with a few of our advisors, two of whom are on the call with me, Anne and Julie, and they're going to provide some feedback on their experiences in Barbados as travel advisors. So I'll pass it over to them quickly to introduce themselves.
Hi, everyone. I'm Julie. I am a Fora advisor, and I've been with Fora for about 2.5 years. I am based in Atlanta, and I'm also the Atlanta chapter lead.
Hello, everyone. I am Ann Travis. I'm based in Scottsdale, Arizona, and am the Phoenix chapter lead. I have been with Fora as a pro for about 2 years now.
Thank you so much. All right, so what we're going to cover today, we'll start off with why Barbados, why you should sell this location to your clients, some location and getting their details, weather and climate, and then we'll go over some of the top properties that we stayed at and that our advisors sell, and then some other fun little tidbits. If you are a Fora travel advisor, you'll have access to this entire deck after the call in Portal. If you're not a Fora advisor yet, Portal is our all-in-one platform for advisors to be able to run their own business. So starting off with some marketing materials, this is so that you can feel confident to sell a location, even if you haven't been there before. We'll have a cheat sheet, which is a one-pager on where to stay and what to do, a sample itinerary, Instagram story template, an Instagram in-feed template, a magic article, a MailChimp template, and a Google map, shareable map with all of the destinations that we chat about pinned. So to start things off, why Barbados? Barbados really offers a lot for such a small island. It's an island really of three coasts. There's the West Coast, which has beautiful sandy white beaches, really calm waters, kind of that classic Caribbean blue that you can see in this photo here. There's also the South Coast, which has more of a nightlife vibe, a little bit more Miami, you could say. And then there's also the East Coast, which is the Atlantic coast and is much more rugged, big waves where you can surf and do some more adventurous water activities. And it's also a top location for golfers. There's a lot of really beautiful golf courses on the island. And so it has a little bit of something for everybody. How long to stay there? You can stay there for a long weekend, or you can do a 5-night stay. There's a lot to do on the island, or if your clients just want to stay at their resort, there's a lot to do at these resorts as well. It's a really small island, so there's only one airport on the island, and it's max like a 45-minute drive to any of the resorts on the island from the airport. There are a lot of direct flights, especially from the East Coast, year-round to Barbados as well. So it's a great option for clients who are just looking for a weekend getaway. Population is a little under 300,000. And in terms of transportation, your clients can rent a car if they want to, but you definitely don't need to. A lot of the hotels and resorts have private car transfers. They have cars that you can use for the day. It's about 3 hours if your client wants to drive around the entire circumference of the island. But there's also a lot to do within walking distance. There are a lot of really small, cute towns, especially along the coast. And then, of course, a lot of private tours as well. In terms of when to visit, like most of the Caribbean, the best time is December through May. That's when the temperatures are going to be the best and the humidity is going to be the lowest. But you can also visit during the summer when it is going to be a little bit more humid, a little bit hotter. Barbados is actually underneath the hurricane belt. So even though it is during the summer, it doesn't get hit by hurricanes. I think the last hurricane to hit the island was like 1955. So winter is, of course, the most popular time, but really it's an all year round destination. These are the top hotels that our travel advisors book in Barbados, but we'll cover most of these today. In terms of what's new and noteworthy, there are a few hotels that just recently opened, and then a couple of hotels, including the Fairmont Royal Pavilion that we'll talk about later, that are going through some renovations. So again, Barbados is really made up of these three coasts, and it kind of gives a little bit of something for everybody. Barbados is far south and pretty far east. So it has both the Atlantic and the Caribbean coast, which makes it pretty unique. It was also a British Commonwealth nation up until 2021. So the British influence is still very strong in Barbados. Most of the tourists that come to Barbados are British, and that influences a lot of the hotels. Every hotel has afternoon tea. We'll go over it a little bit later, but the dress codes often are a little bit more elevated in Barbados than they might be in other Caribbean islands as well. And now I'll pass it over to Anne to talk about our first property.
So one of the first places we stayed, and I actually got in a day early just because of the way that the flights worked out, is the O2 Beach Club and Spa. And the O2 Beach Club is on the South Coast. It is an all-inclusive. So important to note that it is a 5-star from an all-inclusive perspective. And they do have a couple of different options in terms of room types. They have an entire adults only building for your clients who are looking for more of an adult only experience. But then they also have an entire building that has anywhere from 1 to 2 bedroom suites, and then the ability to adjoin some of those suites to make 3-bedroom options. So people with families also have a full range of options in how they want to make those accommodations. They do have full dining. There's multiple restaurants on site. The only thing to note about the dining is that even though it's an all-inclusive, there is still a time frame for when they're open, like when the restaurants are available and when you can find dining options. So something to note for your clients, that it's not something where they have 24-hour room service and all of the dining is available at all times. They will just want to make note of the hours for each of those restaurants. But the food was fantastic. Drinks were included. They have a swim up bar, which I thought was really fun. And there are actually there are multiple rooms that have swim up options, but 3 that are also oceanfront. So if your clients are looking for an oceanfront swim up option specifically, I would recommend calling in for that because they only have 3 and they aren't necessarily listed on the site. So that would be something you'd want to reach out directly for. They have a ton of activities on site, but I would say in terms of families, certainly it's family friendly at all ages, but more for families that either have activities planned elsewhere or plan kids are kind of able to entertain themselves on the beach. There isn't really a large active beach club for kids or anything like that. So something to note. And then they are also, the O2 Beach Club is located very close to the St. Lawrence Gap. And so it's walkable to that area, which has a much bigger nightlife. We'll talk about it later, but it has easy accessibility to Oyston's Fish Fry, which is a hot spot. And the resort also offers some live music on evenings. They do have a spa. So a lot of options for you from an all-inclusive perspective.
So our next stop in our tour of Barbados was the Fairmont Royal Pavilion. Here we stopped for a site inspection and we learned so much about the hotel. So it was built in 1940. It's a very historical building. And when you walk in, you immediately get a sense of place. You know you're in Barbados. You know you're on a Caribbean island. The walls are pink. There's gorgeous floral arrangements, fountains with greenery coming out of them. It just instantly transforms you into a vacation mode. So we all fell in love with it in that sense. It was definitely had this relaxed luxury vibe. And when we walked the grounds, we weren't able to see any rooms, but we did get to tour everything around there. There was a combination of they were sold out, and then also they were doing renovations in one of the buildings, which is important to know that they are undergoing renovations right now. So their availability is pretty limited. And I think, if I remember correctly, they were going to be anticipating opening those rooms back up in January, kind of back for high season. So that's what I think the hope or goal is right now, because it is like half of the rooms. This hotel, I feel like, is best for the clientele that kind of wants a really chill vibe, that they aren't looking for the scene. They aren't looking for nightly entertainment or in like constant activities. We felt like in general, there were not very many people around when we were there, but that was maybe like a more mature audience, maybe that's couples celebrating an anniversary, or maybe those with younger kids that kind of don't want chaos around all the time, but know that their kids are just going to enjoy the beach and the water. They do have a beach club with a lot of non-motorized activities. So that is a great option as well. There's 75 rooms total, and there's one villa. And it's important to note that the Fairmont Royal Pavilion is not all inclusive. There are 3 restaurants on property. All of them have outdoor seating. The restaurant where they serve breakfast every morning, we all agreed had a total like Havana vibe to it. There were palm trees, there were big fans. You could definitely enjoy a lovely day out there looking at the ocean and enjoying a cup of coffee. It's also important to know there's no spa on property. So that is something that, again, this is kind of like low key chill place. You're not going to be bothered with crowds, but you are going to have to be really content kind of doing things on your own or going into town. There is a kids club. It starts at the age of 7. And it is well suited for families with many connecting room options. So I think all in all, it's a great place to go. But I think this one, if you were staying only there, you might want to be on the shorter side of your stay, maybe like that 3 to 4 nights. You might feel like you get a little restless if you're staying longer, if you're not open to going into town, because it is near Whole Town. So that's that one. All right, so Sandy Lane. Sandy Lane was our next stop. This one, we had the absolute privilege of staying there for 2 nights. Like I've told everybody that will listen about my stay at Sandy Lane, that it is definitely more than a hotel. It is an absolute experience. While no detail is left untouched, what makes Sandy Lane so special is the staff. I've never stayed anywhere where the staff was so sincere, so available, and the service is so varied. The cool thing about Sandy Lane, which didn't get right away, but now I understand, is that every guest there gets butler service. So doesn't matter what room type you're in. If you're staying at Sandy Lane, you have butler service. And that list of services just constantly blew my mind. They will unpack your bag. They will pack your bag. They will shine your shoes. They will do your ironing before you go to dinner. They will do all the things. And in the services that they provide, every guest at Sandy Lane gets airport transfer to and from the airport. And you get VIP fast track through the airport as well. So really, your vacation starts before you even show up on the resort. And then they also send you away with a glass of bubbly if you want it. So they truly make it an experience on every level. There are 113 rooms and suites spread across 4 wings. It is important to note that this is not an all-inclusive resort. They do have a meal package option, which I would recommend having your clients add that on because it will help with a bit of the savings of food. It is pretty pricey here. As for who to send there, this is your client that has no budget, that really wants the best of the best, that wants to have a luxurious experience at every level. This is the place that's great for the multi-gen trips because I think that, there's stuff for the kids to do. They have an amazing kids club, but there's also that refinedness that maybe the grandparents would really enjoy. This is a place that many people come back to year after year because they feel like it's home and this staff treats them like they're home. They take notes about what the clients like and don't like, and they make sure that they are personalizing everything within the stay. A few other things, they have non-motorized water activities. And of course, you cannot mention Sandy Lane without mentioning the Green Monkey. It is the most exclusive golf course on the island. And only guests, which they call residents of Sandy Lane, have access to Green Monkey. You can only play from 8:30 to 10 in the morning. So the tee times are very limited. And so if you have clients going and they're big golfers, make sure that you are making that golf reservation as soon as you book their rooms. While you could try for festive, I would pretty much not get your clients' hopes up. They do have a 2-week minimum for festive, which is important to note. And it pretty much books out the first week of January. Repeat guests get first dibs. And so if you're new to it, you're likely just be put on a wait list potentially for years. The big restaurant, which we're going to talk about later, is on property. They're actually opening up a new bar. And I think that in general, this is just a place that if you're looking for a really special trip to commemorate an anniversary, a birthday, I can't think of any better place to go than Sandy Lane.
Yes, Sandy Lane is amazing.
We all teared up a little bit. We had to leave. We're done.
All right, last hotel that we're going to talk about is the Cobbler's Cove Hotel. Cobbler's Cove is also on the West Coast near Sandy Lane. It is in that classic Barbados pink that kind of all of these hotels really lean into. It's a very small hotel. There's only 40 rooms. It's a mansion that the owners turned into a hotel, so it has that very homely feel. They serve afternoon tea like all of the hotels in Barbados because of that British influence. And this is really set in a tropical garden, so it has that very lush feel, even though it is still on the beach. But a lot of the rooms face onto various gardens, so it has a very private feel. For each room feels, very secluded. This is a great option for clients who are looking for that relaxed but upscale vibe, that want a lot of privacy. The rooms are all very light, bright, airy, have that classic rattan furniture, all the floral fabrics. There are a range of one-bedroom suites facing either the gardens or the beach. They also have two-bedroom suites that are also very private with outdoor terraces and a short walk to the beach. And then on property, there's one restaurant that serves breakfast, lunch, dinner, and afternoon tea. There are bed and breakfast rates available, so your clients can have breakfast included. And then for dinner, again, like a lot of these hotels, there is a dress code. It's a casual but elegant dress code, mostly no shorts allowed. And then a few other hotels that we love in Barbados include the Coral Reef Club, also on the West Coast near these other hotels that we're talking about. It's quiet, white sand beaches within walking distance of Whole Town, which is one of the towns that we'll talk about a little bit later. It's a picturesque town with great shopping, great restaurants, and a boardwalk. The hotel has that kind of classic Caribbean style. So if you have clients who want to be within striking distance of the town, but not, in the town, this is a great option because it's still on the beach, still really quiet and secluded, but they can go into town if they want to. Sandpiper, also on the West Coast, very close to Coral Reef Club, but even closer to Whole Town. So it has much more of that kind of cosmopolitan nightlife feel. So it's great for clients who really want a mixture of both. It's a much more modern style. The owners rebuilt much of the hotel in the last 10 or 15 years. So it's one of the most modern hotels in terms of architecture, design, feel. So if you have clients who don't want that kind of classic Caribbean style, this is a really great option for them. And then the last hotel is the Apes Hill Barbados. This is for your clients who want a really private golf escape. It's inland, it's very elevated. They have incredible 360-degree views of the island and the water. It's not on the water, it's up in the hills, but it has 3 and 4 bedroom standalone villas with pools. It has a clubhouse, hiking trail, kids club. So it's really for the clients who want that really private, very golf focused escape.
So, what is there to do in Barbados? Obviously, if you have clients who are going there for 4 days, 5 days or more, they may want to venture off the resort. And there is a ton to do on the island. Most of the honorable mentions are things that you might expect from a normal Caribbean island vacation, but some are very unique to Barbados. When you are there, Whole Town, as we've mentioned before, is probably a must for your clients if they are really into specifically like upscale shopping. They have a lot of dining options, a very lively nightlife. It's a very vibrant town. And so it's an option for clients who are really wanting to get out and kind of experience the local culture of Barbados. One of the things that we did while we were on the FAM was a catamaran tour, which included snorkeling. And probably for me, one of the highlights because they took us out on this beautiful boat, probably the largest catamaran I've ever seen. And we've snorkeled actually over ruins or whatever they're called, like shipwrecks. And so there were a lot of like really cool things to see that were directly below us. Even from a snorkeling perspective, you didn't need to be scuba diving to do it. And as someone who has snorkeled in a lot of places, I would say this had by far the best snorkeling I've ever experienced personally. You felt like you were in a fishbowl and it was incredible. Lots of sea turtles, which was really cool. And then for people who are into rum, Barbados, if you didn't know, is actually the birthplace of rum. And so St. Nicholas Abbey is a distillery that is absolutely worth noting. Not listed here, but something to also keep in mind is Mount Gay, which is the original rum distillery. So like the very first rum distillery ever created, and it's in Barbados. And so for people who are into spirits and want to have that experience, that would be an opportunity for them. There is the botanical gardens, which include all of the beautiful flora that is available on the island. So if someone wanted to go through and experience all of that in one place, they could do that at the botanical gardens. And then we also have, for wildlife enthusiasts, plenty of wildlife on Barbados. I was very excited to see that there were lots of monkeys on the island because they're just lots of fun and entertaining to watch. Lots of colorful birds. If people are into birding, this is a great place for them to kind of sit and check out all of the different birds. There's a ton of different spots on the island for people to see and experience all of that wildlife. So kind of a fun opportunity for them. And then, as we've mentioned, there is Friday night at Oyston's Fish Fry. And this is something that every single place that we went to mentioned Oyston's Fish Fry as a staple, something that they have pretty much ingrained in their culture. And it's every Friday night. The locals go there, the tourists go there. So definitely if you have clients that are staying over a Friday, I would highly recommend that they go to experience that, just to get that sense of community, certainly, and also the fun and the culture that they embrace. We also mentioned, of course, the all-inclusive resorts. So for people that want to not go all over the island and just stay put and relax, they have all of those options available at the all-inclusives that are on the island.
So, as for where to eat when you are on the island, there are really so many options. We'll start with some of the highlights at each of the resorts. So, to start there, Oro at O2, like we talked about, is the most, or is part of the all inclusive package. It is by far the most elevated dining experience at O2. So much so that it's important to remember that your guests can only reserve it up to 2 times during their week stay. Has excellent food, excellent service. It is only open 5 days a week, which is important to know. And they are actually getting started with the sunset service. So one of the other things, again, to note about that is they will allow kids in this restaurant, but they ask that the kids dine early. So it's important that you don't try to do a late reservation if you are dining with your children. And if there is availability to eat there again, once you're on property, they will allow clients to eat there more than 2 times, but 2 is the max that they can reserve in advance. This restaurant is on one of the highest floors in the resort on the adult only building, which is great because it has incredible expansive views of the ocean and really just allows for a special evening. We really enjoyed our meal there. So I would recommend absolutely eating there if you have the time and the opportunity. As for Taboris, the Fairmont Royal Pavilion, we had lunch here and it was delicious. Felt like one of the healthiest, most vibrant meals that we had. It was all set outside on their outdoor patio. And so that's another thing is like there's indoor and outdoor seating. There's a full bar there and just a chance to dine there. I think you dine there for lunch and dinner. Beige and Blue is Sandy Lane's main restaurant. Here's where you can have breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Their breakfast buffet is incredible. It has cook to order items as well as huge menu that you can dine from every cuisine, from Asian to Italian to Beijing cuisine, and then your classic steak entrees. And then I think that we ate there twice. That was one thing I was going to mention. So we really enjoyed all of our meals. And again, it's indoor outdoor seating, so that year round seasonal dining.
They had 24 karat gold leaf lasagna, which I thought was insane, but it was delicious. I would also say at Beige and Blue, they had an extensive wine list. So for clients who are really into their wine, I'm in the middle of getting my Somm cert. So I was reading through that line by line by line, and I was really impressed with their offerings. So that's something to mention too for people who have a little bit more of a discerning palate with their wine options. They had tons of great options there.
Okay, so we have restaurants outside of the resorts as well. Whole Town is certainly your town that is going to have your most options. And if you're on, that side, west side, then you can walk to Whole Town for most of your resorts. When this was my second trip to Barbados, so the last time we stayed down the street from Sandy Lane, and we would walk into Whole Town almost every night. And we found like an Italian restaurant that we loved. There was one night we went and played trivia at a local bar. So Barbados is just one of those places that you can absolutely mix with the locals, find the tiny locally owned restaurant, have a great dinner, a great night out, and safely walk back home at the end of the night. And that's one of the things that I loved about Barbados. I have not had the luxury of eating at any of these restaurants, but Barbados has a really strong food culture. So definitely try local favorites, encourage your clients to try them, and enjoy the local towns because that's where you're going to get that authentic food. And if you don't have a car, your hotel can always help you with transportation, whether that's calling a local taxi or taking, one of the cars from the hotel itself. So yeah, I think that does, definitely don't be shy to go out and explore what Barbados has to offer.
So, kind of piggybacking off of that, actually, and I actually saw somebody, I think it was Audrey, mentioned in the chat the flying fish dish. Like, absolutely, if you're there, you should check that out. There's a list of signature dishes that we would encourage your clients to try. The cuckoo and saltfish, the grilled lobster, you really can't go wrong. I would say a lot of their food does have a little bit more of a heavier feel to it, but there are certainly options that are lighter, especially when you start getting into the seafood options that are a lot lighter and very, very fresh, of course, just due to location and so on. Dress code to note is that I think because of the influence that there is from the UK, and because it was a Commonwealth, there is an elevated dress code experience there that I would prep your clients for. They may be surprised at the fact that some of the places that they go, particularly in the resorts, it's a lot more common to be more dressed up than they may be familiar with at other Caribbean islands. And there are specific dress codes at some of the resort properties, both just in general, but certainly then in the dining options, where for men, pants are required, those types of things. So just be prepared to prep your clients for that so that they understand what the expectations are when they go and are ready for it. And then we also would always recommend respecting the local customs. Obviously, one of the things that we found to be so delightful was that the Bajans there are so friendly. They're so warm. They're so welcoming. It is not uncommon for every single person that you pass to say good morning or good afternoon and greet you and say hello. And of course, to do that back is always welcomed. Tipping for hotel and driving and dining services, both of those common, welcomed. In terms of health and safety, I was actually in a conversation with another advisor before we left, and of note, and I would share this with your clients as well, especially those who are particularly concerned about safety, and or if you have single, solo female travelers, etc. It's a very safe island. From the US State Department, they rate Barbados as a 1, meaning like the safest rating that you can get. And other places that people commonly travel to and think nothing of, such as France, Amsterdam, Sweden, some of these other places are rated a 2. So very, very safe from that perspective, and something that you can share with your clients. The currency is actually based, they have their own currency. It's the Barbados dollar, but it's based off of the US dollar, and it's like a 2-to-1. So for every US dollar you have, multiply that by 2, and that's the exchange for the Barbados dollar. They do accept US dollars as well. So, you do have that option. And then beach safety, the beaches are beautiful, but always, understand that there are ocean conditions, currents, things that you need to be mindful of and pay attention to. Some of the beaches, particularly in that Platinum Coast area, that while they don't get hit by the hurricanes, they still do get some beach erosion from storms here and there. And so there's ongoing opportunity for them to clean those up. And when we were actually at Sandy Lane, they mentioned a massive project to expand the beach in a very economic and sustainable way that they had solicited the help of their local experts and so on to do so, but just something to be aware of. And the other thing that I thought was really cool is that because the island is not a volcanic island, it's actually built on, it's a coral like limestone. And so all of the water is from underground aquifers. So they tout having the cleanest water because it's not just standing groundwater. It's filtered through that limestone. And, one of the things that they were very proud to share with us, that it was a very, very clean water system.
And the coral limestone also creates like a beautiful background for a lot of the golf courses as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, especially the green monkey. It was like right in the middle of it. It was beautiful. Lastly, the beach clubs and accessibility. Barbados does not have private beaches. It's against the law, but they do have, of course, very private experiences if you're staying at some of the more exclusive properties. So, they do have the abilities to have the sunbeds, have that oceanfront dining experience, but the beaches should be noted that none of them are private. Also, I would say we've mentioned before, but very, very important to note that because it's outside of the hurricane belt, they were very specific in saying this is a great destination for clients who want to go to the Caribbean, but don't want to worry about the hurricane system. So they can certainly plan and feel secure in the planning of their vacations, even when it's hurricane season, because they're outside of that belt. And then, of course, the cultural highlights, like we mentioned at the Rum, super cool. And then the art scene is also very thriving. So for clients who like art, collect art, just want to go and see and experience it, they have a lot of opportunities for that also.
And then we always like to include a few little fun tidbits about famous films, TV shows, books, musicians that are related to Barbados. So they're definitely now on my list, having gone to Barbados. And then, of course, we can't have a destination debrief without mentioning Rihanna. Rihanna is from Barbados, and she was, we mentioned often when we were visiting there. So lots of good things that you can also recommend to your clients before going on their trip. Or as Anne brought up, these are also great gifts for clients before or after they go on a trip. There are a lot of cultural celebrations and events throughout the year in Barbados as well. Barbados really prides itself on its culture, and the culture is one of the things that really makes Barbados stand apart from a lot of the other Caribbean islands. In February, there's the Whole Town Festival, which is located in, obviously, Whole Town, which is one of the towns we were talking about a lot. There's also the Oystons Fish Festival on Easter weekend, the Crop Over Festival in July and August, and Barbados Food and Rum Festival in October and November. So if you have clients who want to kind of take part in that culture a little bit more, you should send them during one of these cultural celebrations.
I guess obviously when you hear us talk about it, we all fell in love with Barbados. It was my second trip to Barbados, and I honestly can't wait to go back again after learning so much more and realizing there's so much more on the island to discover. But if we're being honest, the Caribbean is a pretty hard place to get to for those that live on the West Coast. So what we like to do here is share some other options. Maybe you have had a client that has gone to Barbados many times and is looking for something else, or isn't ready to make the trek over there just yet. So there are a few here that we think would make great options to consider. So we love the Grand Cayman and Panama are great options for those that like to explore independently. They both have great food scenes, but they're safe to roam around. And, whether that's drive on your own or take walks on your own. So I think both of those options fit in that category. For St. Lucia, it is a very different island because it's a volcanic island. It's much, has much more rugged terrain, but it does also have those beautiful elements of rainforest and beautiful beach locations, as well as, some resorts that are not necessarily directly on the ocean, but then some that are. So St. Lucia is a great alternative when it comes to an option in the Caribbean, as well as Curacao. Curacao is known for its, Dutch colorful architecture, its vibrant art scene. So if there's people that really want to connect with culture and history, then of course Curacao is a great option as well. And then of course Belize is another great destination. I actually in my research was discovering that you can fly direct from LAX to Belize on Alaskan Airline. And the prices right now, at least, are really, really inexpensive. Belize is a great way to combine all of the things, right? The culture, the history. You can jump over to Guatemala, depending on where you are. And actually, the only other thing that they shared with us is that a lot of people end up flying into Barbados through Panama. There's a direct flight from Barbados to Panama. So it's also another add-on option where if somebody wanted to get a little bit of Central America time, if they just wanted 3 to 4 nights in Barbados and then jump over and do some Central America, exploring Panama would be an amazing place to stop and extend your trip for a few more days. So that could be a great combination.
Great. Thank you, everybody, for coming today to the Barbados Destination Debrief. Thank you so much to Anne and Julie for hopping on and providing such wonderful insight. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
you.